How's it going, everybody? Today we're going to be taking a look at a really cool new release. It's an all-new mold of a black ant, and this is BB-73 Deathmatch. So one important thing to note before we get this review started, this particular figure that I'm showing off today is a VIP release, and this one is the final main release of the VIP program, which, as I understand, has been discontinued. There is one more from the VIP program that's the quote-unquote exclusive VIP release, and that's Dankang. Don't know if I had that pronounced right. And that release was voted on by VIP subscribers, where 5T Toys designs a custom figure that's only made available to people who pay for that subscription. And I'm going to do a review of that one as soon as I can. So this one came with a collectible pin and the bonus item that's specific to this figure. Now some of these collectible pins have had glow-in-the-dark features, and I'm going to see if this one does. Alright, does not look like this glows in the dark, and that's okay. It's still a very cool collectible pin. So for today's review, we're going to take a look at all the figure details. I'll do 2 transformation demos, Deathmatch's alt mode as well as its box mode, and then we'll wrap it up with a box grade and some final comments. So let's jump right in. So we'll start by taking a walk around the package here. And again, this is the VIP release. Comes with some collector's cards apparently. Very cool box art on the cover here. I love this. This whole look and design I think is very inspired. So you got some details about the figure here. Putting a little highlight on the opening mandible here. And of course we got 5T Toys. This one was designed by Metal Command. So Deathmatch of course, and we're showing box mode. You got the insect mode, and then of course it's instruction / all-terrain whatever mode. Something else to note is this is a 3 out of 5 star rated transformation difficulty. I'm taking a look at the inside of the package here. Got the usual set of stuff. And that would be instructions, catalogs, and a character card, and some of those included collector cards. So there again, minor gripe. 5T Toys is no longer doing character bios on these cards, so you got nothing on the back there. You do have some very cool artwork of this figure though. Kind of a plus and a minus. I really miss those bios, I guess, personally. But moving on, let's talk about some figure details. So the first thing I want to point out is some of the differences between the VIP release and the regular release of this figure. And I may not have this 100% right, but this is my understanding of what's changed with the VIP release. I guess this one has some additional graphic markings. I'm not so sure how much has changed between this particular figure and the regular release. Probably the most prominent thing you'd notice is it has orange eyes instead of red eyes for the regular release. I'm pretty sure this one has some additional silver flake paint application, so if you look at some of these silver parts, they're a little bit sparkly and that kind of thing, and I do not believe you get that on the regular release for what that's worth. It does have some transparent parts. I believe that's something else that people have commented on. The regular one does not have that, so some minor differences, but it's such a damn cool figure that none of this is really a deal breaker. It's just nice little enhancements, basically. Now, another thing that I'll say is that 5T Toys has a history of knocking it out of the park with insects. I mean, it might be because insects inherently have features that translate really well to mechanical creatures. Either way, their designs are always really good. So basically, any bug that you pick up from 5T Toys Beastbox series, it's always going to be a really cool figure. You're never going to be disappointed with any of these. So moving on to more details about this figure, it does have some very highly articulated legs, very nice sturdy joints. It can hold a lot of different poses. And what's interesting about the bottom part of the back legs is they do kind of bend inward, which is very true to an ant's posture in real life. Really dig that attention to detail here. So yeah, you could definitely get it into some interesting stances. You got a double joint here on the bottom here, and hinge in and out. Kind of a joint in the middle there, and again, of course, at the tail end there. So yeah, basically 4 points of articulation on at least the hind legs. Front legs can swivel in and out, of course. The head has quite a bit of mobility, can turn up and down, left and right. The mandible can open and close. And just to show you real quick, for some size comparison, let's take a look at a hexanoid pilot. This is a 1-inch minifigure. So with those large, deadly-looking mandibles, you can absolutely terrorize your little hexanoid pilots, so that's pretty cool. We may find some other interactivity applications as we take a look at this thing in its construction vehicle alt mode, so we'll see. So moving on to more details, you got a little bit more articulation in the, I guess you'd call it the abdomen. Now this one has a pretty clever antenna design. I mean, these antennae are very on point, I think, with basically the stance of an ant, and they look pretty wicked and deadly, to be honest. I mean, it's, you know, you got these serrated edges here. I mean, they just look dangerous. These spiky tips here, it's pretty cool. So yeah, overall, this figure has a lot of really interesting sharp angles. It's highly articulated. There again, it definitely has the correct proportions of an ant. And on top of that, they cleverly hid the transformation bits for the alt mode in its abdomen here, so that's pretty damn cool. I mean, this is overall a very well thought out and designed figure. And to be honest with you, given kind of the nature of ants, I do think the construction vehicle alt mode is pretty cleverly analogous to an ant in real life. So there again, it's like with Onatopti and many of the other insects that 52 Toys has designs for the Beastbox series. Really well thought out and very well done. All right, so let's move on to a transformation demo. We're going to start with the construction vehicle mode. And this will be my first time transforming it into its alt mode. So we're going to see what comes out of it, but I'll just say up front, I kind of feel like this is one of those bonus items that is so complementary to this figure that it's really not quite complete without it. But we'll take a look at it and we'll see. I'll tell you something else. With these bonus items, I guess I'm a little bit of a nerd for box art. I tend to keep these, and I don't know if anybody else does. It's always cringe a little bit when I have to open these cards because you have to tear out the card to get it opened. So I am curious if anybody else hangs on to their box art or the bonus cards. Let me know what you think with the comment. Do you keep any of this stuff? I'd like to know. Yeah, it does come with a little instruction set here. And yeah, it looks to be pretty dang simple. So apparently you just need to pull out this piece that has the hook on it. And this is, of course, a bit of a parts former, so we're going to rotate that piece out, and we're going to pull these pieces out, this side and this side. Then on this middle extension piece, we're going to pull out this little piece. And it does have this slider on here, so that's something to just be aware of, but it is a telescoping arm. Gets out quite a ways there. And then basically, yeah, you're just reattaching everything. So this piece will go on here. The hook end piece will attach right here. This piece will swivel down, and it looks like what you want to do, at least according to the instructions, is attach this piece kind of to the side. So I don't know if this is going to function as a little bucket for your hexanoid pilot. I guess we'll just have to see when we get it connected to Deathmatch here. So yeah, that is the crane, and it has quite a bit of extensibility here. It gets out there quite a way. Overall, this piece is just about the full length of the figure, so they put a lot of functionality into this one little part here. Pretty dang cool. Let's get Deathmatch into its construction vehicle mode. So first thing we're going to need to do is compact up its side legs. So you're just going to tuck them in and in like that. Basically get them folded up into rectangles. Come around on this side. We'll do it here too. Then we're going to move the front legs so that they're essentially straight out front, just to kind of get them up and out of the way. Now the next thing we can do is convert the head. So basically we're just going to close up the mandible here. There's a little hinge here that opens that up. It's almost like a second mouth. That looks delicious. I like that. I want that. Yeah, basically open that up. That's a little compartment. Then we're going to fold up the antenna. That's just going to collapse down onto its head like so. We're going to leave it like that for now. So next thing we want to do is get the legs converted into sort of a T shape. What we want to do is we want to make sure this hinge is pointed straight outward. So if it's not, like on this leg, yeah, you're just going to want to crank it around and make sure this is pointed straight out to the side. Then basically, we're going to take these from this joint, we're going to rotate it around like so. So the front leg will come forward like that, the back leg will be like that. They're basically going to be in this position with this joint rotated to point out to the side and this joint of the leg pointed out completely front and back here. Just basically have that right there, and we'll do the same on the other side. There again, making sure that top joint is rotated completely out to the side like so. And from the next joint, and we're going to rotate that backwards and then forwards, just like so. And those are going to come up to the side. They don't have to be completely parallel with the body yet, but they need to be sort of in approximate position so they're ready to go. There again, as always, adjust as needed. First thing, I'm going to get the head and neck a little bit out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to this part. So basically, we need to get these back end tail pieces up and out of the way. And you want to be careful because that is on sort of a delicate joint here. So you don't want to just force it open because it is locked in there with a tab. You just kind of want to gently pull it up into the side, if that makes sense. Just enough to get it up and out of the way. And I think that's good for now. And we'll do the same on the other side. There again, from the tab, we're going to pull that up and out of the way. That's enough to get it out of the way. Then from here, we're going to open up from this middle seam. And this one can be a little bit tight. You may need a little implement to pop it open. You might be able to get your finger in there on the crack here. There we go. And that's just enough to pull it open and fold it out to the side like that. So now that we have it open flush like this, we can go ahead and take these corner pieces here and we'll tuck them into the notch of the side skirt piece here. So we'll fold that over and around. You want to get it lined up in the tab here. Obviously, don't force it. This piece can be slightly finicky. You definitely want to make sure you get it folded up into that notch correctly. So yeah, there again, I wouldn't say force it, but you definitely may need to work it a little bit. So with that, next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold it up and around on the side here. So we're just going to bring it over and to the side just like that. And just make sure this hinge is flush with the top of this piece here. Now we're far enough along that we can pull off the tank treads. Yes, this is partially a parts former. These pieces have 2 joints, so you're going to pull it back from there, and you're going to pull it down from there like that, and then they'll just pop off. They're connected with pagan posts, just like that. Then you get a little tank tread here, and that's going to go on the side of the front legs. So since we got that up and out of the way, now this is definitely a figure where you want to make sure you're paying attention to where joints are positioned. So in the case of the back piece, you're going to want to bring that straight up and then straight back. So you got 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle like that. This is the correct position to have that in, so just be aware of that. Now that we have enough clearance on the back side here, again, you're going to want to make sure you're paying attention to the position of joints. This joint needs to tuck up and into this cavity here. And the way we do that is the bottom part of the midsection is on this sort of slider, so you're going to push that back. And you may need to maneuver the legs a little bit just to get them kind of out of the way so your fingers have room. Yeah, see this hinge here? This is on a bit of a ball socket joint. It's not just a straight on rotating joint, so you're just going to push that back and get that up and into that cavity like that. If you don't have it pushed up in there, then your transformation is going to be wrong, so you want to make sure you have it up inside that space. Same on this side. You're going to push that up and in, and then from there, since I pushed these pieces out of the way, we're just going to rotate them back up into position here for now. And I'm going to rotate these forward a little bit because we do need room to get those caterpillar treads on there. Now for the next step, and I will say, you kind of want to do the transformation of this figure in a particular sequence, and that's just because the parts need to be arranged in a particular way. So basically, from this hinge right here, we're going to rotate the legs down. That's another thing I want to point out here is there is a tab and post connection in the middle, so you don't necessarily need to right away, but eventually these parts have to connect, and these legs are going to be sandwiched together like that. So yeah, so we're going to bring that down, essentially down and around. So what's going to end up happening is these feet need to connect to the bottom of this platform. We basically want to get things into their approximate position so we have it ready to go. So once we got it about in this orientation, that gives you enough clearance to put the tank treads on. And the tank treads, the orientation for these is the gear needs to be towards the front of the figure, and the caterpillar tread needs to be on the bottom. And something to note here is there's 2 tab connections for the side of the legs, so those are going to have to connect like that. So we're just going to flip it over, we're going to line it up, and it's just going to connect like that, and we'll give it the same treatment on the other side. So there again, gear towards the front, tank tread on the bottom, just line it up like that, pop it on, pretty easy. Now another part of this is these 2 posts need to connect to the top of the caterpillar tread, and there again, that's why it's critical to have this joint pushed up inside this cavity here, because otherwise you won't have them in the right position to get that connected there. And then you're just going to sandwich them together like that, and it's a pretty secure connection. So we'll do the same on the opposite side. Yeah. Now we're just going to sandwich it on there. Now there again, you want to make sure that this front post is connected here, so we'll just push that together like that. That'll lock into place. Super nice. One thing I did whiff on for this back carriage piece is I have it raised up a little bit, and that's not quite correct. So basically this ball socket joint needs to be forward. That is the correct angle, 90 degrees here for this joint and this joint. This joint in particular needs to be straight up, but it's this ball socket that needs to be pivoted in a forward position. Basically, I'm just going to rotate it so that it's straight on with that joint and then rotate that piece up. And you can probably see the difference here. That is the correct orientation. Essentially, you're going to want this carriage piece flush with these hind legs here. But before we get too carried away here, we're going to maneuver these a little bit out of the way so we got room for the last connection here. And that is front legs have pagan post connections. They're going to connect to that part right there. If you have this transformed correctly, they'll pop into that post real securely. Go, we got 1 and 2. And of course, adjust as needed. Yeah, we're going to straighten some things out here, get that tucked in pretty nice. And the last part is the head just needs to be pushed down into this space here, and it'll be flush up against the front of the vehicle. And there you have it. So I didn't do a perfect job with this transformation. This is still pretty new to me, but that's essentially the idea. Everything's connected solidly. I may have some pieces slightly off kilter. On balance, this figure definitely has a little bit of forgiveness as far as its alt mode, but you do want to make sure you get some of those joints in the correct position, otherwise it won't transform correctly. So if you were to buy this figure without its bonus item, basically you have this mode that you can play around with, and it is a little bit of a, kind of a carriage mode. As far as action figures go, how it scales really depends on your imagination and like how you want to play with it, I guess. So, I've got these little 1-inch hexanoids here. I think this works as a giant insect robot, alien slash vehicle or whatever you want to call it. So you could have your little dude parked on its head here or something like that. Or like he's got a little cockpit right up front. Very cool. Something like that. I did say there is an alt mode. It's sort of a triple changer, but actually there is an extension of its alternate vehicle mode. And we'll take a look at that real quick here. So it's not just an off-road caterpillar. It also has a crane mode. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to disconnect the caterpillar treads from these hind legs here, starting with the feet. And I'm going to delicately pull these apart. Same on the opposite side. And for the time being, what you want to do is rotate these essentially out to the side from this joint, rotate them up. And it is a tight, squeaky joint. Just get them up and out of the way. And I'm not going to worry too much about appearances right now. You essentially just want them up like that for the time being. Essentially what we're looking to do is get these turned into side struts, stabilizers, or whatever, kind of like what an actual real-life crane does. So we'll get those up and out of the way, like I said, and then we're going to reattach these feet to the bottom side of this carriage piece here. So just get that connected like that. Do the other one. And they'll still hold pretty securely, and it's all due to having this joint tucked up into the cavity. That's kind of the key part of this alt mode here. So just something to keep in mind. So now we're going to take these side panels and rotate them up and to the side, so you're essentially getting them up into this position. It's almost like a truck bed. Now we're going to rotate the legs down from this hinge and then like that on the other side, and we're going to rotate them forward and backwards, so they're essentially going to be in an X shape. About like that. I don't think the exact position necessarily matters. Then we're going to rotate these legs out, about like that. Now for the last joint of the legs, you're going to want to bring them down parallel to the ground here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's the stabilizer part of it. The exact orientation doesn't necessarily matter. And you'll probably want to maneuver the front and hind legs just to get them into correct position here. About like that. So they're essentially flush to the ground with the caterpillar treads. And then from there, we're going to take the bonus item and get it into the picture here. So there's a little bit of a notch at the bottom end of this peg. You need to rotate this out. Get that out like so. And then that's just going to connect to the back of the beast here. Beast back. And there you go. You got a crane with a telescoping arm. Pretty cool. And yeah, you can definitely rotate it all the way around. And there again, depending on where your imagination goes and how you want to interact with this thing, could have that as like a little cockpit for your 1-inch action figure. Something like that. Anyways, we've got this partially transformed enough that I'm going to go ahead and finish the job and get it into its box mode. There again, transformation on this piece is pretty darn simple. Basically, we're just going to get rid of this piece, going to push all that in, going to slide this piece off like so. This piece will slide off like that. This piece will connect to the side like so. We're going to take this piece, connect it right here, like so, and we'll get the hook inside that hole here, and then slide it right on there, and there you go. So there again, like I was saying before, this is a quarter-size cartridge-style bonus item, and what'll happen is, if you get 4 of those, they'll stack inside of a box charger, and typically what they have is a post on opposite corners, and then the piece that it'll stack with will stack directly on top of that and connect to it. In theory, I haven't always had perfect success getting those in there. You just fold it up in there, and then there again, you would have 4 of these and they'll fit inside of a box charger. So, as far as this guy, like I said, we've got him partially transformed. We're just going to take it all the way and put him into his cube mode. So first thing we want to do is get it into sort of its approximate insect shape. We're going to start with this. Getting the caterpillar treads off the side of it here. We get the legs up, and these legs are going to fold all the way in, so we're just going to go ahead and finish the job and put them back the way they were. Just going to rotate them up like that, like that, like that, and essentially get them out of the way for now. The head is going to transform into about this position, so I'm going to leave that alone. What I will do, though, is get the front legs folded up. One thing we do need to undo, though, is we need to get this joint out of this cavity, so we're just going to rotate that forward like so, like that. We get it on both sides just to get it up and out of that space, because part of the transformation is the sliding mechanism does need to be pushed forward, so we get that in that position like that. Essentially, this plate needs to be lined up the back end of it with this silver piece right here. You'll want that forward. There again, if it's not in the correct position, it's going to be straight on the back, and it needs to be up like that. So as far as these legs, they do have a tab and notch connection on the opposing sides here. We're just going to bring those around, get them connected like that, and then rotate them up like that. And I'm just going to leave them at about a 45-degree angle for now. Now, if it's not already, you would want to gently take the neck and pull it forwards, and you'll hear a click. I believe this is in the forward position now. There again, that's the back position, and it won't transform correctly if you don't have the neck exposed, so you want to pull it forward. Again, don't crank on it. If you hear that click, that's in the correct position, and it essentially locks it into this position. Now we're going to take the head and fold it up and over like that, and it's going to be flush with the body, so you get it about that position right here. For the front legs, we're going to rotate them from that first joint straight down like that, and then those joints are going to be rotated to the side like so. And there again, you've got another tab and notch connection. So when you get them folded up and over, they're going to connect to the middle leg here on each side. And take them in about that position like that, and rotate them up and over. Essentially just match them up with the other legs. There again, you're going to want this second joint here straight down. Then we'll connect it on the sides here. And there are actually 2 tabs here, so you're going to connect it here and here. And there's actually a peg and post connection here on the interior part of the leg, so just make sure you get those lined up and connected. And it may take a bit of fidgeting to get these pieces to line up, but that's kind of the key thing is you want to make sure all these tabs are connected, because if you don't, you're going to have a janky box mode. So some of this transformation does amount to a little bit of wiggling and kind of fidgeting to get it into correct position. It's not bad though. It's just a matter of getting things lined up where the joints are supposed to logically go. And there again, lots of tabs connecting this thing together. So here's another tab here that's going to go on the side of the head. We'll just line it up like that. And I'm going to leave that alone for now because there may be a little more maneuvering with the back side of this. So we'll see what we got here. At this point, we just came off of the vehicle mode, so we're going to make sure we want to get the caterpillar treads attached. And the orientation you want for this is you want the tread facing towards the interior of the figure, and then you want this top piece, the shorter hinge, to be wrapping up and over. So essentially we'll have it lined up like that. We'll start from this side just because that's where the post is. Just line that up here. That'll connect there. Then it basically just folds up and over. So you're going to connect it there. It's going to connect to that post right there. And then that part will fold over. It's just like that. And we'll do it on the opposite side. There again, connecting to that post. We're going to fold it over like that, connect to that post, and then it'll just wrap around just like so. Now for the back end, we're just going to want to fold these pieces up and over like that. Because this was already in its caterpillar tread mode, we don't have to do anything with these angular pieces. But for now, we're basically just going to rotate this thing around and over, get it up like that, and then it's just going to fold into itself. So there again, there's a tab and notch connection here. Like I said, on this side, I wanted to hold back just to make sure I didn't need to do any other maneuvering. And I'm going to go ahead and connect that now. So that'll just scrunch in there real solid, and this piece is just going to collapse up essentially. So we're going to connect that like so. Then we're going to push it in just like that, and I'm finding this figure does not require a whole lot of scrunching here, one way or the other. That is your box mode. This one forms a pretty solid box. I mean, it is solid. Everything connects real securely. The only minor beef that I have here is this particular caterpillar tread, for whatever reason, does not want to lay flush with the backside here. So it's sticking out just a little bit. It's not bad. I think this could have been remedied if there were another tab and post connection to really secure this to the backside here. And it probably just has something to do with this pin joint. I don't know. But other than that, every other panel on this, I mean, it's a totally solid cube. Flat on all sides. I mean, you got a little bit of gear showing. You got a little bit of the character peeking out here, but yeah, totally clean box mode. And of course, it fits right into its box charger. Fantastic. Now it's time to give this highly articulated, action-packed army and a box grade. This is my rating system of 6 categories of 5 points each for a total score of anything from 0 to 30 points. True to 5.2 Toys form, this is a well thought out figure with characteristics that are inherent to the real life creature. Everything from the way its legs can be posed, the cleverly designed antenna, eyes and mandibles to the alt mode construction analogy, this one definitely hits all the marks for a score of 5 out of 5. It's highly articulated, anatomically on point, it converts into a 2-inch cube, and also into an all-terrain utility vehicle, which even has a crane mode. I do think you'd really need to buy the bonus item to get the most out of this, but even without, Deathmatch has so much going for it. 5 out of 5. Transformation is easy and pretty straightforward. There are a couple of minor fiddly bits that you do need to pay attention to the position and orientation of certain joints, but beyond that it's great. Deathmatch forms a pretty solid box mode with clean sides, and it fits very easily in its box charger for a score of 4 out of 5. They build excellent articulation into this figure. It's pretty much a perfect representation of an ant. Its opening mandibles and antenna are a nice touch, legs are an infinitely posable, and its articulated abdomen gives a little extra posture for some interesting stances. 5 out of 5. Deathmatch is well built. For most other figure lines, I think you'd probably expect loose joints on something like this with insect legs, and that's definitely not the case for this one. It has very sturdy joints and heavy-duty pin screws, and it can hold any pose with ease. My only minor beef is that tank tread that doesn't quite want to sit flush up against the side in box mode. 4 out of 5. Deathmatch is a fun figure. Its transformation is really enjoyable, right in that sweet spot of not being too difficult and also interesting. It's a great robot insect, it's highly posable, it has a fun alternate mode, and overall it's a really fun interactive figure to mess around with, from the moment you pull it out of its box to the moment you decide to put it down. And beyond that, I think it's a figure you want to keep picking back up and filling around with. 5 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 28 out of 30 points. So there's a look at 52 Toys' newest insect faction release, BB-73 Deathmatch. What an awesome figure. I'm gonna keep this wrap up short and sweet. As always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch my videos. It's your likes, shares, and comments that keep me going with this channel, and I'll be back with more soon. Thanks!